Welcome in to the I-80 Boys podcast. I am one man of the show. The other guy over to my, he'd be my left tonight, is probably somebody that you guys know very well. My name is also Chris Vaca. This guy off to my left is...
Man, I'm just along for the ride. Call me whatever you want, win, lose, or draw. I'm just having a good time, Chris. But one thing I can tell you, as the resident co-host of the show, is, it's pretty significant, the age gap between you and me, Chris.
It's every week with this guy, man. I mean, he talks shit in fantasy football, and then he comes on air and still talks shit about me being old. No, you are right. I am 10 years older than you, Christian. You look like a very young, pubescent boy over there. You look good, my man. No, what's up, though, Christian? What do you know, man? We're on to week 4. It's gone by fast, man. I know we wanted to be here all year. It's gone by quick. But, man, there's a huge slate of games this weekend, Christian.
You said it best, Chris. Huge slate of games coming on. I mean, exciting weekend. Week 4, I think this is where the action really just ratchets up a notch here. Chris, I got a question for you. What are you wearing there?
Look, guys, I've been taking a lot of heat over here, Christian. I know, you work in Council Bluffs over there, in Council, Kentucky, Iowa sometimes, and I work in downtown Lincoln, Christian, and I got called a hater several times this weekend, or this week, I should say, at work, because people were talking 8, 9, 10 wins for Nebraska this season, and these are my hater blockers, man. I'm done with it. I can't take it anymore. I've heard enough. I'm done. I come at it. This one thing I love about the show, Christian. We come with realistic approaches, right? We're wrong about some stuff. Absolutely. When you make as many takes as Christian and I do on this show, you're going to be wrong about some stuff. It's all love over here, like Christian always says. But man, I'm tired of being called a hater, whether it's from the Colorado man, from the Florida man. Now it's the Nebraska man. I mean, they get one win and now they're on top of the world, Christian. So that's what I'm wearing. I'll take them off eventually someday. Maybe when we start winning some football games.
I like it, dude. I like it. It takes a lot of cojones to be able to rock something like that.
I know. I look like a clown, but here I am.
Well, Chris, let's get into our first matchup here. A little Florida State versus Clemson. The preview. What do you think about Florida State in this one, Chris?
Woo. We know they're 3-0, right? The big win against LSU, right, Christian? Week 1, we did that game, called that game. Fun game to watch. Second half, Florida State ran away with it. They beat Southern Miss, I believe, the next week. And then last week, Christian, I think a game that a lot of people were shocked when you saw the score, 31-29 over a Boston College team that you and I both know they're no good, right? I mean, Boston College is just not a good football team. But I did watch most of that game. It was sad because Florida State was up 31-10. It's just like almost they took their foot off the gas. Boston College came back, ended up making it a one possession game at the end. But yeah, overall, Florida State's 3-0, right? We're coming into Clemson here. We've been talking about this game. I had this game circled. I'm a big Florida State truther this year. The health of Jordan Travis. That's my biggest question in this game. He got banged up in that game, was pulled out a couple times. And I don't know what his status is. I'm assuming he's playing, obviously, but he's going to have to be healthy for this one. I know Clemson, and you'll talk about them here in a minute. This is an ACC rivalry game, right? I mean, most people knew coming into the year it's going to be Clemson, Florida State trying to win this thing. The other question I have though, Christian, with Florida State, it's almost looked like they didn't even prepare for Boston College last week. Were they looking ahead? We talk about that a lot on this show. It does happen in the world of college sports. It happens in the NFL. It happens in the high school level. They got to bring it this game. They have to. Florida State, I think a lot of people after that week 1 win against LSU, everybody's like, holy shit, this Florida State team is for real this year. They're back, if you want to say that in quotations. They got to bring it. They got to get the ball to the receivers. Keon Coleman, I think in that game, Christian, had maybe 1 catch against Boston College. That's unacceptable in my opinion, the transfer from Michigan State. They got to get the ball in his hands. He's one of the nation's top receivers in my opinion. Also get the ball to Johnny Wilson, the 6'7" receiver. Jaheim Bell, right? How bad does South Carolina want that kid back at tight end? We saw that against Georgia. They needed him in the second half. That kid's a stud tight end player. You said he even played a little bit running back. Kid's an athlete. Other thing is, in this game going forward, for me, get pressure on Cade Klubnik. Florida State, they got, excuse me here. They need to get some pressure on Klubnik. They have to. Klubnik hasn't had near the experience that Jordan Travis does. Put some pressure on him this game, like Duke did against Clemson week 1. You got Jared Verse out there. Everybody's telling me he's a top 15 pick this year in the NFL draft. He was non-existent in that Boston College game last week. He needs to be present. He's got to get out there. So big thing for me, Christian, is defense in this game for Florida State. They got to come firing out in all cylinders on defense. Get pressure on him. Force him to get the ball out early and often and contain Will Shipley. And I'm going to kick it over to you for Clemson. We know what Will Shipley can do, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson, they're coming off of 2 blowout wins over Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic, but they did lose the season opener to Duke, a very tough Duke team, might I add, to start the year off. Clemson's offense, that's been the biggest question mark this year. Primarily like the passing game, I feel like, with Cade Klubnik and just trying to figure out what can they do. Here's what was really interesting to me, Chris. Florida State ranks 64th in run defense this year. So, they're going to need to lean on, Will Shipley in the run game in this one is what I'm thinking, to try to give Klubnik a chance to get him in any kind of rhythm coming into this one. Right? On defense for Clemson, they've only gotten 4 sacks in 3 games. 4 sacks in 3 games. Remember, that's up against Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, and Duke. So, Florida State's going to be an improvement there that they're going to be seeing in this one, right? Jordan Travis, he's no slouch either. You touched on him. I've started to play better, I think, against lesser competition, so it's really going to be interesting to see how that translates over to the game at FSU. Going to be really interesting to see this matchup, Chris. My final score prediction for it: Clemson 24, Florida State 35. What do you got, Chris?
You touched on it. You said, I think this game is going to be close. I believe right now, currently, that line's moved on Florida State down to 1.5. It was 2.5. But give me Florida State 31, Clemson 24. I think this will be a 4-quarter game. I think it'll be a good game. But I'm going to take the team with the better quarterback. Give me Florida State.
I like it, dude. I like it, Chris.
All right.
So you got Florida State, man. And it's funny to say because I know coming into the year, obviously I probably wasn't as high on Florida State as you were. Then I switched my opinion on them probably, I don't know, halfway through the offseason.
Yeah, you did. You came around, finally started listening to the guy that knows what he's talking about on this show, and you finally kind of came around on him. You still didn't take him over LSU, which I was disappointed. But no, you're right though, Christian. No, Florida State's they're a good team, man. But here's my big thing too. I'm not really like everybody's pointing out that they played like shit against Boston College. I watched most of that game. Yeah, they did. They didn't look good. They looked like they honestly just overlooked that game on both sides of the ball. Jordan Travis looked out of sorts. They didn't, like I said, Keon Coleman, dude, didn't even have a catch in that game. I just pulled the stat. That's crazy. He's the guy that lit up LSU, had 3 touchdowns in that game. So overall, yeah, Florida State didn't look good. I hope that they're focused on this game because I know Clemson's not rated coming into this game that lost to Duke to start the season, Christian, but this game, is going to be tough. Clemson is, their playoff shots rely on this game. This is it for them. They lose 2 games, they're done for the season, and Dabo Swinney. You can't count the guy out, but this is a guy that probably can't afford to lose 2 out of 4 games to start the season,
Yeah, absolutely. You're not wrong, Chris. Looking a little bit here at Texas A&M versus Auburn, the preview. Chris, what are your thoughts on Texas? Let's see. Hold on one second. Yeah, what's your thoughts on Texas A&M?
Absolutely. No, I got A&M here, Christian. They're 2-1, right? The loss to Miami. We know what they did against New Mexico State week 1. They lost to Miami. I watched most of that game. To me, Miami looked really good. It wasn't that A&M is bad in that game. They made a few mistakes in the third quarter, turned it over, ended up getting down. They had to fight their ass off in the fourth quarter. Congrats to the Miami defense for pretty much shutting them out. We all know about their quarterback, Connor Weigman. Kid has 8 TDs and 2 turnovers this year, Christian. We talked about him a lot in Texas A&M this offseason about what can they do on offense this year. It looks like their offense has come around. They look 100 times more improved than they did last season. But the big thing, with A&M in this game, especially against Auburn, we don't know a lot about Auburn. They did play Cal in a close game. That's pretty much all we know about Auburn so far. A&M's got to start running the football, though. It's amazing to me. They lost A-Chain last year to the Dolphins in the draft, but I mean, they don't have anybody that's really proven to me so far that can run the ball. I mean, they predominantly become this pass happy offense, which I don't love if I'm Jimbo Fisher personally. They're averaging, I think, like right around 130 yards per game on the ground. Now that's not terrible, but a lot of that was against a couple lesser opponents. Miami, they didn't have shit in that game. So my big thing into this game, Christian, I'll say this: the game is played at A&M. It's Kyle Field. You hear about it all the time. Nobody wants to play A&M at A&M, right? Use the crowd to your advantage. Get off to an early start in this game and set the tone early. And I mean on the defensive side of the ball. I think Auburn's going to want to run the football. You're going to let me know here shortly. But I think A&M needs to get off to a hot start. And they have time to turn the season around. I don't think losing to Miami is the end of their, Jimbo Fisher, fire this guy talk. I don't think that's too early. So Christian, I'll kick it back over to you here for Auburn.
Yeah, Chris. I mean, Auburn, they're 3-0 this year, and the only team they played is a 2-1 Cal team. That was one of the sloppiest games I think we've stayed up to watch in a long time. Maybe even this year. I mean, arguably. To be fair, though, I mean, we knew it was going to be a tough game. I mean, it was a road game late at night on the West Coast, so we understood that coming into it. But still, quarterback Peyton Thorne didn't look good against Cal and gave way to Robbie Ashford. By the way, he also had 2 interceptions last week against Samford. So it's going to be really interesting to see, how's he do against a tough Texas A&M defense, dude. I mean, Texas A&M, especially at home, they're no slouch, like you said, Chris. Auburn currently has the 89th best passing offense in the country. And, my biggest question mark for Auburn, who's going to step up and be the quarterback and take this job, right? Who's going to take the job coming in as SEC play begins for Auburn? That's the biggest question mark I think most Auburn fans have on their mind right now. By the way, teams also ranked 14th in total defense right now. So how will they hold up against a very good Texas A&M passing attack? You touched about that. They've kind of gone away from trying to run the ball at times, and they've really tried to really just go up-tempo and throw the ball with Weigman. That's going to be really interesting to kind of see how does that defense stack up against it. Chris, I'll give you my final score predictions here. Auburn, 17. Texas A&M, 35.
Are you fucking kidding me? That's my exact prediction. I have wrote down right here.
There you go.
Auburn, 17. A&M, 35. You can't hit the nail more on the head there. Holy shit. That surprised the hell out of me. When you said Auburn 17, I was like, oh boy, he's going to say 35 for A&M. You sure did. So, that's awesome.
Great minds think alike, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what they say. That's what they say.
So, Chris, looking ahead a little bit here, that you touched on, dude. That's one of those matchups where the game's on the road. If the game was at Auburn, would you lean a little more towards Auburn, or are you still rocking with A&M?
I would still rock with A&M just because I think they have the better offense. I mean, Auburn right now is trying to find a quarterback, and that's not good, Christian, week 3. You know what I mean? You're still trying to figure out who the guy is. I know a lot about Peyton Thorne, watch him play at Michigan State, but Auburn fans got to be a little worried this year. I'm not saying, Auburn season's done, your season's over, that type of thing, but I'm just a little concerned that A&M has looked pretty decent on offense. The same, if they had this offense last year with that last year's defense, they would have won a hell of a lot more games than 5. But here we are, right? It's 2023. If I'm Auburn right now, I'm a little worried. And yeah, if the game was played at Auburn, maybe I would give a little bit more of a lean. But I just think A&M is a good team, and I think that A&M lost to a Miami team that's pretty good this year. That game, to me, when I was watching it, reminded me of 2 top 25 teams playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, A&M has looked, I think, better in a loss against Miami than, Auburn looked against that sloppy win that was just really weird against Cal.
Wasn't there like 8 turnovers in that? I mean, it was just nasty. 20 penalties or something like that. It was a gross game.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you're not wrong. I mean, it's just been it's been really interesting there for the Auburn man. So. Moving along here. Let's do that. Ole Miss versus Bama, the preview. Chris, I'll start us off here with Ole Miss. This is going to be one where we might kind of differ. Yeah. I mean, dude, this matchup, this is the one I'm most excited about this week probably, right? Ole Miss is 3-0, and guess what, Chris? Have won all 3 of those games by at least 17 plus points.
Woo!
Let's say that stat for you guys again. Every game they've won it by 17 points. Now, most impressive win was the Tulane, where they were without quarterback Michael Pratt. If he plays, the game might have gone a different way. I digress. Defensively, Ole Miss ranks 66th in the country in total defense, which is good considering the fact that USF, who's ranked 98th in the country, allowed only 17 points to Bama. And they also have Pete Golding, the former Alabama Crimson Tide defensive coordinator, who might have something up his sleeve for this one. So it'll be really interesting to see how that matchup plays out right there. Offensively, Jackson Dart is getting it done, dude. He's got over 1,000 total yards and 9 touchdowns throughout those 3 games. He also leads the team in rushing, and all-world sophomore running back Quinshon Judkins is close with 150 yards and 4 touchdowns. Here's the thing, Chris. Bama's defense is, they're still pretty stout. So the big thing is going to be, can Ole Miss score 30-plus points to guarantee a victory over the Crimson Tide?
Love your take there on the Rebs, man. Talk a little bit about Alabama here. I'm not gonna take a ton of time. If you guys saw my short about Bama a couple days ago in the trash, kind of where they belong currently. But I'll say this: Alabama is 2-1, right? I'm not even gonna talk about their Week 1 win against Middle Tennessee State. We could talk about the loss, against Texas at home by 10. It was ugly. We talked about it enough over here on the show. They last week in that game against South Florida was probably the worst I've seen out of an Alabama Nick Saban team, Christian, ever, out of any Nick Saban team I've seen. That's going back to his days at Michigan State, man. That was back in the 90s. That was a South Florida team, Christian, that I think had 1 or 2 wins last year. They were god awful, and they're god awful this year. It was an ugly game. I know they rolled out Tyler Buckner. They benched Milroe, and then Buckner couldn't get it done. They brought in the sophomore Simpson. He looked just as bad. It was just Nick Saban doesn't look like he knows what the hell he's doing. And that's about all I could say about Alabama's offense. And by the way, Alabama's offense, Christian, get this stat, is almost 90th in the country in total offense. How can we say that about a Nick Saban-led team? That's amazing. That's insane to me. Moving forward here with Alabama, though, if they want to win this game, they got to figure out some sort of way to move the ball. Obviously, the quarterback situation is not good. They don't have anybody that's going to push the ball down the field. Well, then run the goddamn ball, right? They don't have anybody. There's no Jahmyr Gibbs. There's no Brian Robinson Jr. There's none of these guys. I don't know what they're doing and how they don't have a running back. It's almost as amazing to me that they don't have a running back as they don't have a quarterback right now or a wide receiver. So here's my thing, though. They're going to have to, if they want to win this game after looking the way they did last week against South Florida, get some pressure on Jackson Dart, right? Jackson Dart's been lighting it up. Let's admit it. He's looked. You touched on his stats, Christian. He's looked great. Ole Miss did beat a Tulane team that was rated in a pretty decent fashion, especially in the fourth quarter there. If I'm Alabama and everybody told me about murder ball off season, you might want to start running the ball to keep the ball out of Ole Miss's hands. That's kind of my strategy if I was the coach and what I've seen so far on the field from Alabama to give yourself a shot in this game, Christian. Christian, I want to know your prediction. This is what it comes down to. We've been smiling about this one all week. Who you got, buddy, in Ole Miss versus Alabama?
I can't wait to tell you. We don't consult, by the way, about these ending predictions or these scores, the final scores that we're going to give for this. But I guarantee you we probably might be right on here with this one, Chris. Give me Bama 21, Ole Miss 34.
Whoa! We are not correct in this one. I am no, and this is crazy to me because I wanted to hear your thoughts because I've been thinking about this all week, right? And I had to talk about Bama in this segment, and I've been harping on him all off season. Lane Kiffin hasn't proven to me that he can beat a ranked team. I think his best win is against Tulane a couple weeks ago. I know Christian's looking around in the room thinking this guy's a fucking goon, but no, I give me Alabama at home, 28. Ole Miss 27. I know it's tough to comprehend. I understand that. But until I see it out of Lane Kiffin, Christian, and Ole Miss, I'll believe it. I'll hop on the official Lane train, as you say.
Chris, to that point, I got a question for you.
Oh boy, what do you got?
Would you say, to start that off, about Lane Kiffin, he hasn't beat a ranked team?
No. I said what's his biggest win in his time at Ole Miss?
Well, that's true. What is his biggest win at his time at Ole Miss? Maybe, but let me ask you a better question, right? Football is so funny because it's kind of like life, right? It's very, what have you done for me lately? What is Nick Saban's biggest win this year?
That would be against probably a Middle Tennessee State team so far. I know where you're going with this. But I'm talking historically, though, looking at both. Lane Kiffin's been around the game of college football, Christian, for a long time. He hasn't beat every time he plays somebody that's we get, like last year. Did they start the season off like 7-0, and then they end up losing like 5 out of the last 6 games? It's nothing against Ole Miss. But by the way, Christian, I'm rooting for Ole Miss in this game. Believe me, 100%. I just, until I see it, I don't know if I could put my money on Ole Miss this weekend, man. And that's where it comes down to.
I feel you on that, Chris. I know a lot of it is, how would you say? A lot of it's really predicated based on you're trying to catch up to me, dude. You know what I mean? I get it. You got to pick against the grain here. It's all right.
Mm-hmm. Smart man over there. Smart man.
Oh my gosh. Well, Chris, let's do this here. Up on the list. Little Utah versus UCLA. The preview. I'll let you go ahead and start us off here with UCLA. UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA, baby, let's go. No, here's the thing about UCLA, man. They don't get any love this year. They didn't get any love last year under Chip Kelly, man. They're 3-0, right? They beat Coastal Carolina, by the way, who's not a terrible, not a bad group of Power 5 schools, right? I mean, Coastal Carolina's been in the rankings a couple times the last couple of years, but they beat them 27-13, right? They went on the road. San Diego State won 35-10. They beat North Carolina Central last week, 59-7, right? These teams all suck, right? That's what you see when you look at it. It should be 3-0. But I'm really impressed with Dante Moore, right? The 5-star quarterback. He's a true freshman, if I'm not mistaken. They're starting him. Chip Kelly is. He's looked really good. I think he's like 3rd in the country, Christian, with like 8.7 yards per play. It's pretty good, man. You can't complain out of a true freshman. You don't see that a lot in college football, even nowadays. But I will say this, though, against Utah, we both like Utah this year. We've talked about him a lot. UCLA is going to be put to the test in this game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We all know Utah's defense is for real. We know that. I don't know how UCLA also on the other side of the ball is going to be able to slow down Utah. I don't think Cam Rising's playing. You're probably going to let me know here in a minute. I don't know if Kyle Whittingham ever is going to release that information for the whole year, honestly, if this kid's ever going to play after that terrible injury last year. But this game it's very hard for me to take UCLA as far as like stat wise, because they haven't played anybody. Utah's played some decent teams so far this year. But I think this game for UCLA is going to have to be won on the defensive side of the ball to shut down those 2 quarterbacks. They run that kind of dual quarterback system over there at Utah. If they can contain those guys, I think Dante Moore is good enough to put up some points in this one. And like I said, I don't expect it to be super high scoring, Christian, but I'm going to kick it over to you for Utah. Tell me something I don't know.
Well, Chris, I mean, you said it exactly right. I mean, the big question on everybody's mind right now, is this going to be the game that Cam Rising makes his debut? Coach Kyle Whittingham, if I've learned anything about this guy, I mean, he's almost like an NFL coach. With how he does it. Everybody's day-to-day. I mean, everybody's day-to-day. I mean, but here's the thing. Utah's 3-0. The biggest win is obviously over Florida, and they beat Baylor, too. Yep. Now, granted, it's not the Baylor of yore that we had a backup quarterback. It was on the road. They struggled. It was a sloppy game, but they pulled the dub out, right? I mean, here's the thing, Chris. If he doesn't play, I mean, the offense, they're capable, right? Because freshman quarterback Nate Johnson, I mean, dude, he's been pretty good for him in 3 games. He's got 429 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. He's also had to split time with Bryson Barnes, though. But he did come in late. We touched on that Baylor game. He came in late and led them to victory. He saw I think he saw almost all the action versus Weber State, too, which leads me to believe if Rising doesn't play in this one, which who knows, by the time this gets published, they'll probably rule him out or they'll say he's starting. he can go in there and he's got some experience. He can light you up. So Utah, I mean, they're super banged up, Chris. We touched on that. I mean, they've got some injuries, but their defense is top 20. The game's at home for them, and they're going to be going up against a really talented, true freshman quarterback.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I got to pick UCLA to lose. To lose. Give me Utah 24, UCLA 17.
Oh, you got me kind of thinking there a little bit. I got a little hyped up because I did pick an upset in this game. I took UCLA 30, Utah 27. I hate to say this, I love Utah, but I think this might be the one of their slip-up games right here, Christian. I know they're at home. I know that's a tough place to play. You said it, though. What worries me in this game, because this will probably be, in my opinion, Utah's biggest test since Florida, is that they're so banged up on both sides of the ball. UCLA, yes, they haven't played anybody. I agree with you guys 100% on that. But give me UCLA by a field goal, 30-27 here at Utah. Woo.
Yeah, we got Daniel coming back and said Utah by 3. That's our resident Pac-12 expert in the house.
Yeah, no shit.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe I have to touch on Daniel's Washington team that looks almost like, I think almost want to hit them and Notre Dame right now look like two best teams in the country.
You're not lying, dude. I mean, they're
Christian, we're having some audio issues with you, Christian, again. I think we might have lost Christian there for a second. Daniel, I got to ask you a question, Dan. How do you got Washington doing this weekend? Give me a score prediction on that game. As hopefully Christian comes back here after some technical difficulties. Ooh, I like the Oregon take, baby. God, you're right on top of me there, Daniel. Woo! Daniel with that bold take. I love it. I love it a lot. More than I should probably. Love it, though. See if Christian comes back in here. We apologize, guys. I don't know if it's Nebraska's internet anymore, but there he is.
There we go.
Hey, cool. Just chatting with Daniel here. I asked him what he thought about Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. He's playing Cal this weekend, so I was just chit-chatting with him, and we'll hear with his bold prediction since he is the Pac-12 expert, as you say.
Very, very nice. Well, Chris, let's roll it on right through here. Let me get us back on track. A little Colorado versus Oregon, the preview. Chris, what are your thoughts on Oregon?
Man, here's the thing, man. Oregon's 3-0. They I don't even know what you want to call that game against Portland State, whatever the hell it was, like 91-7 or some shit. I'm not going to talk about that one. They came back at a game against Texas Tech, though. They did catch the end of that one. That was a good one, but they pulled it off. Showed me a little bit of resiliency there at Lubbock Stadium. They beat Hawaii last week 55-10. That's what everybody expected, right? Oregon's one of these teams this year under Dan Lanning that we expect to be very good again, Christian. I think we all know that. My biggest thing for this game, though, keep the offense on pace, right? We know Colorado can't stop a nosebleed. They got to put up some points. I think they're going to do that in this game. They're averaging, Christian, 58 points a game right now. That's a lot of points in college football. I know they played a couple no-namers there, but still. Bo Nix has almost got 900 yards passing through 3 games, 8 TDs, 0 turnovers. I love that stat. And it's not the 8 TDs. This is 0 turnovers with Bo Nix, man. I don't think he's getting near enough love. I know Michael Penix gets a lot of it, and Caleb Williams over there in the Pac-12, but Bo Nix, Christian, you saw him a lot at Auburn. We know what he can do. Here's my big thing, though. They got to keep this game a little bit balanced. I don't want them just go pass happy against that Colorado lack of defense in the secondary. They got to be able to run the ball. They've been pretty good about that this year with Oregon. They really have. They're a pretty balanced team for the most part. Defensively, we know Colorado's passing offense is elite. I get that. I think they're second or third in the country throwing the ball. They can't run it. But I think Oregon, if they can put some pressure on Shedeur Sanders in this game, and they should be able to. Colorado gives up like 7 sacks a game. It's amazing. They should be able to put pressure on him, make him get rid of the ball early and often. Oregon's going to be fine in this one as far as I'm concerned. I'll say this. Oregon does only give up 284 yards per game. That's 31st in the country. That's a step right behind Nebraska, believe it or not, in that stat, in that category. Christian, I'm going to kick it over to you for the old Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah, Chris. I mean, Colorado, they're 3-0. Let me say it again for everybody out there not listening. They're 3-0 heading into Pac-12 play. So who have they beaten? Oh, you just touched on it. 1-2 Nebraska team and a pretty bad Colorado State team in double overtime last week. The best wins definitely, I would say, over a 2-1 TCU team on the road. First game of the year. I think that's their best win to this point. I mean, Prime's got to believe in, dude. That's the thing about this. Deion has them believing. And here's the thing. They got one of the best passing attacks in the country. They rank second in the country as far as passing offense is concerned. Shedeur Sanders has 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. So to me, regardless of Colorado's record at the end of the year, he should at least earn a trip to New York for Heisman consideration. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I think he should at least be invited. Oregon is a top 30 defense. You touched on that, Chris. A top 5 offense. The game's at Oregon, and Colorado is without its best player in Travis Hunter. I mean, he's going to be out for a few weeks. So a lot of question marks heading into this one. Give me Colorado 24, Oregon 42.
Ooh, love the take. I'm on the same page as you are, but just a little bit worse. You know, my love for Colorado is deep. Give me Oregon 56, Colorado 21.
Ooh. Gonna fire up some of the buffs over there, Chris.
That's all right.
That's what you're gonna do.
We're good at that. We're good at that on this channel. Don't worry. I love it, man. I love it. You got to get him riled up over there. But let's be honest. I mean, Travis Hunter's hurt. That really takes away a weapon too in this game, Christian. You know it. We talked about him playing 100 and some odd snaps a game. You're going to get the kid hurt out there. And I'm not agreeing with what happened to him. It sucks, but never want to see anybody get hurt. And I love a guy playing both ways, man. But that's just more opportunities for him to get hurt. And he's a big part of that offense and that secondary.
No, I 100% agree with you, Chris. Moving on here, looking at Penn State, looks like Penn State versus Iowa, the preview. Yeah. Penn State versus Iowa, the preview here. Chris, what are your thoughts on Penn State?
All right, baby. Let's go. Nittany Lions. So we know they're 3-0. They beat a West Virginia team. I think it was like 38-15, Christian, week 1. You know, they turned around, knocked off a Delaware team in a blowout, 63-7. And then last week, if you guys didn't watch that game against Illinois, Penn State looked pretty good in that game. I mean, they won 30-13. Illinois hung around, and I don't think Illinois is a great team this year. They definitely stepped off a ledge as far as defensively from last year. But it was a good win on the road for Penn State. Drew Aller didn't look great, though. That was probably his worst game he's played. Not writing off Drew Aller. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks they've had in the past, I don't know how many years for Penn State this year. But how is he going to fare against this Iowa Hawkeyes defense? We know Iowa brings a defense every single year in and year out. Iowa's defense is always keeping them in games. That's just what they do there. I think we all understand that. I think in this game, though, Christian, I think Penn State's going to be interesting to see how they use both those running backs, Tatron Allen and Nick Singleton, right? Those two are probably the best tandem in the country behind maybe Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards at Michigan. I mean, they're right there. I dare you guys to find another combo of backs better than those two teams have. But both have over 40 carries this year. They both look pretty good. They barely played against Delaware, so their carries are down a little bit there as far as stats go. But Illinois has a decent defense this year. Illinois, you could tell, really wanted to shut them down and make Drew Aller beat them. He had some good throws in that game, and I take it back to Drew Aller coming up in this Iowa game. Is Iowa and Illinois are very similar on defense. They're going to try to stop the run. They're going to try to beat them through the air type of game. I think this is how this is going to play out. But the big thing, Christian, I want you to mark this one down. I've talked about it a lot this last week. Penn State's defense to me is elite, like elite. I'm talking I'm not going to throw them up there in the 21 Georgia, defense, but these guys are really, really good on the defensive side of the ball. They have a chance this year probably be the best in the country, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. They forced already 8 turnovers this year, Christian. They're all over the field. They will not allow you to run the ball on them. We all know about Iowa's struggled on offense. They look a little bit better this year, I think, Christian. And I want you to make the case for the Iowa man right here, Christian. Let me freaking have it.
Well, Chris, taking a look at Iowa, they've actually managed to put up 41 points last week for the first time in I don't even know how long. I mean, I'm not even an Iowa fan. I'm wearing this hat because, I work in Iowa. I got to support the Hawkeyes in this one, I suppose. It was against Western Michigan, and they only managed to put up 14 in the first half, so that was a little concerning. The previous 2 weeks, though, against Iowa State and Utah, they put up 24 and 20 points. Was their totals for those games, which was, 44 points. So they almost matched their same point total, albeit against probably a lot lesser competition. Take that how you will. Here's what's concerning for me. Cade McNamara was 9 of 19 for 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions against Western Michigan. Iowa, if they have a shot in this one, they just need to run the ball, control the clock. I mean, they're currently ranked 72nd in rushing yards, going up against a tough Penn State defense that ranks 33rd in rushing defense and 16th in total defense thus far. Iowa still looks really good on defense. I think they can get some stops early and slow down Penn State's offense early. But again, as that game wears on, I think Penn State's going to figure them out. Right? Another little stat here for you. Iowa ranks 31 in the country on total defense. And that's, and that's with games against offenses that haven't really been lighting the scoreboard up, right? I know Utah State, I think they had one where they came out and they put up 60 some odd points against a nobody school or something like that. But still, I know Iowa State hasn't really been all that great either. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that matches up. What's your final score prediction in this one, Chris?
Christian, you touched on it a little bit. And the reason why my score is going to be the way it is, and I have Iowa 13 points. I know that sounds really low, but Penn State at 30. I think this is honestly, it's not because Iowa's defense is that bad. I just don't think Iowa's offense is going to be able to move the ball much, Christian. I don't think there's going to be a lot of first downs for Iowa's offense. Therefore, you're putting Penn State's offense on the field a lot. And like I said, I'll say it again. Give me Penn State 30, Iowa 13 in this game. I think it's a very similar game last week for Penn State when they played Illinois.
Yeah, we're almost right there. I've got Iowa 14, Penn State 28. So we're pretty similar, I guess, in our sentiment there. I hate it for the Hawkeye. Chris, kind of looking at it from the outside, looking in. Do you give Iowa any shot in this game realistically?
I think the only way Iowa wins this game, and Iowa is notorious for doing this, they will play in a couple games every year, no matter what the level of competition. We've seen it in the past against the Ohio States of the world, the Michigans. They're going to have to get some turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. You know what I mean? They're going to have to either make Penn State one-dimensional, make them throw it. Drew Aller looks like a guy that's probably never maybe thrown a pass before type of thing, and maybe get some points. There has to be a defensive touchdown, Christian, I think, honestly, for Iowa to stay in this one. I just don't know how. I think Cade McNamara is an upgrade in this game for Iowa, obviously a quarterback from last year. But Penn State's defense, just to me, man, I'm telling you, if you haven't watched them play, dude, they're all over the field. They get a lot of pressure. They have a lot of guys that are ball hawks back there, man. They're aggressive. I love it. If you want to watch a really good defensive team this year, watch Penn State play. I'm very high on Penn State. I think Christian knows that, but I just think Penn State's just too much for Iowa in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything you said, I agree with you here, Chris. Moving ahead a little bit here to Ohio State versus Notre Dame. I'll kind of start off here, and I'll start with the Ohio State man. I'll give you my breakdown of Ohio State. Super exciting. I mean, it's a top 10 matchup this week, Chris, between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Ohio State's offense, against Indiana looked off, but they found their way over the last couple weeks. And Kyle McCord looked good. He had 576 passing yards and 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games. Of course, it was over Youngstown State and Western Kentucky. TreVeyon Henderson has 191 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns for the Buckeyes, so that's good. Currently, Ohio State ranks third in total defense. I'm going to say it again, third in total defense. And they've only allowed 2 touchdowns over the course, of the season. I mean, again, it's Western Kentucky, Indiana, Youngstown State. So how will that look? I mean, taking on a red-hot Notre Dame offense that you're going to touch on here in a bit. I don't really know. I don't think anybody really knows. That's what makes this so fun. The game is at Notre Dame, and for the first time in a long time, Chris, we've talked on this, I believe Notre Dame has a better quarterback than Ohio State. So what's your thoughts on Notre Dame over there, bud?
Let's go. You said it right there. I was just going to interject there because when you said that, that's going to tie into my final score prediction. But I will say this, Notre Dame 4-0, right? They had the extra week 0 game. They're 4-0. I'm not even going to – I rattle off the teams they've beaten. It's nothing crazy. They beat Navy. They beat Tennessee State, NC State, and Central Michigan, right? Okay, crazy. They haven't played any Power 5 school other than NC State, which NC State's one of the bottom tier teams probably in the ACC this year. But they've looked good and did what they've had to do, Christian, all 4 of those games, right? So Sam Hartman, you touched on it. This guy, man, so far, I've watched him play. He's 64-90, 1,061 yards. He also has 4 games. Most people have 3 so far with the extra game, week 0. But he's got 13 touchdowns, Christian. Zero interceptions so far this year. That's impressive. I don't care who the hell you're playing or not. He's not turning the ball over. That means he's been looking good at the quarterback position. He's comfortable with the ball. He's not trying to force anything. Looking very good back there so far if you're Notre Dame. My big thing, though, coming into this game, and this game is probably going to be one of the top matchups all year. If I'm Notre Dame, pound the ball at the Ohio State defense. Reason number one why I'm saying this is because Michigan's done it year after year, the past 2 or 3 years, and they've had a ton of success, Christian. I talk about it all the time. Ohio State hasn't been able to stop the run in big games. Let's just be honest. Ohio State had no answer last year in the playoffs for Georgia running the ball right up the middle. So Notre Dame looks like they want to do that this year. Audric Estime has had 63 carries this year for 521 yards and 5 TDs. He's looked really, really good on the ground for Notre Dame. Use that to your advantage if you're the Notre Dame man. My big thing, you touched on, this is what I really wanted to touch on before I give my prediction here, Christian, was get pressure on Kyle McCord. We haven't seen enough of this kid. Notre Dame's got the better quarterback in this one. You said it. That's probably the first time in how long, right? I can't believe I'm saying that. Notre Dame has a better quarterback in the last 15 years than Ohio State. But they do. Sam Hartman's a much more experienced quarterback. Kyle McCord is young. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad quarterback, but make him get the ball out early. I will give the advantage here to Ohio State, though. They have the better receivers. They do. Ohio State, we know this. They probably got 3 NFL wide receivers on that team. They do every year. But I would get some pressure on Kyle McCord early and often in this one. My score prediction, this was a tough one for me to pick, Christian. And you know how much love I have for both these teams. I don't personally like either of them, but give me the upset, by the way. The upset here. Notre Dame is favored less than a field goal in this game. Give me Notre Dame 27, Ohio State 24.
This is one, Chris, as the season's gotten going, I've kind of switched back and forth with how I really want to pick this. I'm actually going to take the upset. And that's just because Notre Dame's ranked number 9 in this one. Ohio State's obviously number 6. I'm going to give me Ohio State 28, Notre Dame 34.
Wow. Okay. I like that. Like I said, we don't consult about these, man. And that was what was kind of cool about this, because I was really curious to see who you were going to pick. I've seen so many people try to predict this game this week, different channels, and everybody has I will say this, Christian, you have to admit this game it would surprise me more if this game, somebody blows somebody out. You know what I mean? Like, I think this game is going to be within 7 points pretty much the entire game. What you say so? I mean, whoever wins it, it's going to be close the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Unless, again, I think the final score will be closer than what a lot of people are thinking. Obviously, I think it'll probably be within a one possession game. The only thing I could see is, again, Kyle McCord, if he comes out there, and that Notre Dame defense, I mean, they're not a joke either. No. If they get after him pretty early in this one, they shut him down. I mean, Notre Dame might run away with it.
Okay. I did put a lot of money on Notre Dame today, by the way, on that game. So we'll see what happens. Give me the 3 points, though, at home even. They're saying, actually, if you played that at Ohio State, if this game was played at Ohio State, they said they would win by a touchdown. It's crazy to me. Crazy.
You know,
Anyway,
I'm not putting anything past them. Little Oregon State versus Washington State, Chris. What do you think about Oregon State?
man, I talk about Oregon State every once in a while, and I like what they've done so far this season. I've watched them play one game, so I can't sit here and act like I'm an expert on Oregon State. But they're 3-0. They've done what they've had to. They haven't played anybody though. Let's be honest, Christian. We know that they beat San Jose State pretty handily. I think it was week 1. They beat UC Davis. I don't even know if that's a school, but apparently it is. And then San Diego State last week. A little closer than what I would have expected, 26-9. But the ukulele, as we like to call him, or DJ Ungule, or however you fucking say his name, I don't know. Probably had his worst. That was terrible. He probably had his worst game last week. Honestly, he really did. He didn't look great. I didn't catch much of that game, but so far in the year, he's got over 600 yards passing. He's got 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Right. This is the Clemson transfer. They pretty much ran him out of Clemson last year. He played a couple years down there. I didn't think he looked terrible. Didn't look great at times either, though. I think they're going to have to put up some points in this one, man. I do. I like Washington's offense a lot under Ward, and you're going to touch on them here in a second. But they're going to have to put up some points. I think DJ's going to have to play well in this one. Oregon State, I think, does have a good defense. But, Washington State's defense is a little sketchy in this one. I think they give up over like 400 yards per game. Oregon State's got to come out here and put up points. That's my point. It's like one of those Colorado type of defenses currently. And is Oregon State's defense for real? We really don't know that. I mean, they've really played 3 pretty much nobodies so far. They're only giving up 11 points per game. I mean, that's like top 6 in the country right now. But then you look at the 3 teams they play and you think, well, shit, they're playing, high school teams. Christian, I want to hear your thoughts on Washington State before we get into this prediction, because this is one of these games I kind of circled. I'm like, I really want to see who Christian picks, because Christian, if you guys didn't know, picked Washington State over Wisconsin, caught a lot of shit for that on a Wednesday show leading up into that game, and then looked like a god when he walked away and Washington State pulled it off. So, Christian, what's your thoughts, my man?
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking. 3-0 Washington State. I mean, they look good thus far with a win over Wisconsin. All right, with a win over Wisconsin, dude. Colorado State and Northern Colorado. Quarterback Cam Ward has 1,000 total yards on the season and 11 touchdowns with no interceptions. I mean, Washington State, dude, they've definitely, they're definitely going to come into this and want to throw the ball. I mean, Ward, he's their leading rusher with 95 yards. 95 yards.
Crazy. Yeah.
Wow. Washington State, they have the number 7 offense in the country, and they're going to be going up against a very tough Oregon State defense that currently ranks number 12 in the country in total defense. Speaking of defense, by the way, Chris, you touched on Washington State's defense a little bit here. Washington State's defense ranks 74th in the country in total defense. Here's the really scary part. They're 109th in passing yards allowed. So, I mean, how's that going to hold up against a fired-up DJ Ungule?
There you go. You said it.
In a very, very good Oregon State offense, man. I mean, this matchup, it's going to be pretty electric. I think it's going to come down to the wire. Chris, my final score prediction, Washington State 38, Oregon State 45.
Wow. Okay, you got a little more of a shootout than I do in this one. I'm gonna try to believe these stats just a half bit on Oregon State's defense, but I still have Oregon State in this one 37. The Cougars 31. I'm leaning Oregon State here, Christian. I know we agree. I think we're a little bit off on the over under there, but I like it, man. I think something's got to give in this one, man. I think this will be a good game, though. I really do. It's a Pac-12 matchup. There's a lot of good Pac-12 teams out there this year, so this will be a good one.
I agree with you, Chris. Let's jump into some of these comments right here.
Go
a little bit. Daniel says Penn State 35, Iowa 21. Then we got Ryan that says Penn State score 35 against Iowa. You must be out of your goddamn mind, LOL. Go ahead.
I touch on this one because I want to. Go ahead first, though.
If anybody probably would put up 30 plus points against an Iowa defense, it probably would be Penn State.
I think so in a way, because I don't think you're figuring this in, Ryan, and I'm assuming you're probably an Iowa fan, and that's great. We need like a big Iowa fan on the show, so feel free to subscribe and comment and tell us, what an idiot I am right now with these crazy looking sunglasses. But my point is with in this game, I just don't. I'm not impressed with your offense, and I don't know how you guys are going to move the ball against Penn State. Therefore, giving the ball to Penn State and giving them a lot of chances to put up points. That's why I have this game pegged at 30-13. But I think it's definitely a possibility. I really do, Christian. I want to hear your kind of thoughts again, Christian, just kind of why you think, if Penn State can put up a 30-point bomb on Iowa.
Well, if I go back to it, I think I actually had.
What did you have for score?
I had Penn State 28, Iowa 14. The reason why I say that is just because the reason why I've got, why I could see Penn State being able to put up more than 30 points against Iowa. I mean, it's really simple, dude. It comes down to Iowa's defense. I don't think they're as scary as they were or have been in years past, right? I mean, I just don't. I mean, one of their big defensive tackles, Shannon. I mean, his career's done. He was like a 7th or 6th year guy that was supposed to step up and be their big presence for him this year. And I'll be honest, I haven't really seen Iowa play anybody all that impressive. You know what I mean? And even Iowa State's offense, which is, I mean, terrible on offense. I mean, their number one quarterback got suspended coming into the year as part of that whole betting. Was I should say.
Yeah, I think Christian, we're having some audio difficulties over there. Hoping you coming back here, maybe. All right, we lost him. He's going to pop back in. Hey, Ryan, I want to answer your question there. You said Penn State, lost to Iowa last time they played. That, unfortunately, man, that's last year, though. I mean, we're talking about this year. Unfortunately, there's Christian back again. I was just answering Ryan's question there about, Penn State lost to Iowa last time they played. And maybe I don't know if they played last year. I can't remember the Big Ten schedule, but I mean, that's last year. Like I said, man, I don't put a lot of faith in last year. I mean, we could say that about a lot of teams, right? I mean, we could look back and, say, TCU beat Michigan last year. Okay. Would they beat Michigan this year? I mean, so I guess that's my point there, Christian. Good to see you back there, buddy. Gator Swag, though, says Notre Dame 37, Ohio State 28. Finally, me and you agree. I mean, a Florida man and me agree. Finally. It's been a while, Gator Swag. I'm sure you're walking around chest out this week with that big win over Tennessee. I don't blame you. I appreciate you coming in on the show, man. That's one thing I love about you Florida fans. Me and you guys are relentless, whether you win or lose. I love it. I know Christian does too. He's got a lot of family and friends that are Florida fans, so I got to give you guys shit whenever I can, man. So I like it, though. Good take on Notre Dame, man. Christian and I are both on them this year.
Yeah, we're pretty right on with it. I mean, the Ole Miss Alabama take you said earlier. I mean, we're right up on there too. Yeah, so
we're close.
Yeah, you said Ole Miss 34, Alabama 24.
I hope he's right. I
do too. I think it'll make for some interesting. It's going to be interesting, either way. And Chris touched on it at the top of the show. This is probably one of the best weeks of college football yet. I mean, not that we've really had anything to look at with these cupcake games going on. This is the first real week I feel as if of legit college football.
Yeah, I agree. Christian, I got a question here before we take off on another team or another game here. I got a question. If Nick Saban loses this game, is Alabama done? They're off the mountain finally? They remind me of like I don't know what word I want to use, like a boxer, and you're on your last leg, and you know what I mean. If they get beat here, I mean, is Nick Saban done? Is it over? The Alabama reign? I know they haven't won it in the last couple of years, but I mean, is this it? If they lose to Ole Miss at home, where they never lose?
I'm not gonna say the reign's over because I mean, kind of like a lot of Colorado fans like to remind us. And for anybody paying attention, I mean, you could see this coming, right? I mean, you knew this was going to be a reloading year for Bama. If you just looked at some of the telltale signs, you kind of did some simple math and arithmetic on this and just looked at who they were trotting out there at quarterback, right? Yeah. And, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of internal strife going on coming out of Bama, where they went away from Milroe after the Texas game, which honestly should have been a cupcake of a game at USF, South Florida. Oh, yeah. And they put the bar and, who stunk up. So, I think this is You still hear me, Chris?
I got you back now, finally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just going to be one of those things where if you're the Bama man, it's going to be pretty rough. We're having some technical difficulties, just like Alabama's offense is this year. I think we've already said enough of the preview stuff. Come back on Saturday and let's get this thing figured out.